Officially get started here. Did I just get a lot louder, or is that just in my head? Um, so, what we'll do to get going here is we'll go over the crime report, and because we didn't meet last month, we'll talk a little bit about April to May timeframe. And the way our crime reports break down is a 28-day window, so it's not necessarily the month to month. The way our crime reports break down isn't necessarily month to month, it's a 28-day window. So we'll back up a little bit. We'll look at like what I'll call like the 60-day window. So basically last month, and then we'll cover the most recent 30 days. And if you have any questions, let this be informal. Stop me right where I'm at. I got the slides to get me back on track if we get sidetracked. So don't wait till the end. That way it's relevant. Somebody else is probably thinking the same thing as well. Once we get through the crime reports and some of the data and the numbers and kind of showing you what we've been up to as the police department in the downtown community. Downtown Resource Officer Dean Jordheim will come up and we'll do a little bit of a educational thing at the end. We got about 6 PowerPoint slides about some business recommendations that we'll go over right at the end, and then we'll open it up at the very end for questions and answers if there's anything that we didn't cover that maybe you want to bring up for a different topic that isn't on here today. So try to get through everything. So like I said, this is April, May calls for service. One of the ways our crime analysts break down our calls for service is by location. It kind of helps us see where are we getting called to the most frequently, where are we spending our time. It allows us to see maybe if we need to look into an area to identify what are the types of calls for service we're going to at these locations. When we get to the 30-day time frame window, I broke it down a little closer with call types, so you have an idea of what actual types of calls for service that we're going to at these locations. So for April, May 28-day window, just in the downtown, we took 762 calls for service. That encompasses everything that is getting logged with dispatch. So that could be proactive and reactive, meaning it could be officers saying, I'm out on foot patrol, walking by discontent or spicy pie. That could be logged as an activity down there. And we'll get into some of the proactive stuff a little bit further later, but kind of gives you an idea of amount of calls for service at specific locations. And I didn't capture all of them. There's pages of it. I tried to take like the top 8 to 10. This is where the most calls were occurring. Any questions thus far? All right. So this is how we look at crime when we're analyzing it. So very confusing to look at it on the screen, so I'll break it down for you. So from the April to May timeframe in the downtown area, we had 2 aggravated assaults. Aggravated assaults are something that we pay close attention to because it's that violent type of crime that we want to make sure we're on top of. Make sure if there's a problem, we identify it and get it fixed. Safety concerns, we'll talk about those in detail in a minute. 0 GSIs, common term rape would be the GSI term, right? 4 burglaries, 8 criminal mischief. Criminal mischief is typically like a graffiti type of offense. Someone spray paints your wall, gets coded as a criminal mischief. 10 thefts, 1 stolen vehicle, and 1 vehicle that was entered unlawfully. In other words, a vehicle break-in, essentially, is a way to look at that. The red circle is showing you how it's trended from the month prior. So in all categories, we're equal or negative. We actually had a reduction in all categories except for thefts, which we'll break down here in a little bit. We'll dive in. So the 2 aggravated assaults we had, you probably heard about both of them. They were very highly covered in the media when they occurred because one was a multiple stabbing at Mexican Village and the other one was a shots fired call at Wells Fargo. The Mexican Village stabbing came out on May 13th. A call came into dispatch that there's multiple stabbing victims in a large disturbance at Mexican Village. Our patrol units responded immediately. We're there in very short order. We're able to identify that, later identified this female, Ashley Larson, as a person who had essentially barricaded herself in someone else's vehicle. The victims were tended to immediately by fire, police, and medics of the FM ambulance service, and they were later treated and released from a local hospital. After about 4-hour standoff with Ms. Larson, negotiators and crisis intervention team members were able to talk her out of the vehicle without injury and took her to the hospital to get her cleared, medical clearance, and arrested her for 3 counts of aggravated assault. The very next day is looking like it was going to be a busy week. May 14th is when the shots fired call came in the parking lot of the Wells Fargo location at 4th Avenue in Maine. That one was a little bit different in the sense that lots of people heard and saw what happened, but when officers got on scene, there was nobody there. There wasn't a victim, there wasn't a suspect, there was kind of nothing. So we canvassed the scene, canvassed the area, interviewed witnesses, tried to gather surveillance footage and all that stuff. This is still an ongoing case that has been assigned to our investigations unit, so I can't go into like the rest of the details because they're actively working it. But what I can tell you with some comfort is that we suspect that the victim and the suspect were known to each other. This wasn't a random shooting at a bank, as it could sound like. So these were individuals that were known to each other, just happened to be in that location. Didn't really have anything to do with the bank in particular, just where they were. But they're believed to be known to each other. Any questions on the 2 aggravated assaults from April to May? Good. So these are the thefts I was telling you about. When we were looking at the crime, we're analyzing what's happening downtown. We're seeing the thefts are kind of up. So what's with that? The first one's kind of interesting. Actually, a security officer left a backpack and a jacket unattended at Broadway Square, and it walked off. And that tends to be the common theme downtown. When we look at it month to month to month, it's not that there's a mastermind criminal ring of thieves. It's usually people left stuff laying behind. A lot of times wallets left on bars, blackjack tables, that type of stuff. They disappear when people go to the bathroom, and that's a common trend. The other thing that gets coded as theft sometimes also falls into more of a shoplifting category. It just, as we've talked about in past meetings, they just didn't conceal the item. So it's a shoplifting, but they didn't conceal it. 2 other ones of note were that Ryan Wentz went into Toasted Frog and stole some very expensive chef knives from out in the kitchen area and was located by our officers and arrested for felony theft. And we made another theft-related arrest, which ended up being Fenton Little Dog was arrested for burglary, actually, after consuming some items inside PetroServe. You're probably asking yourself, wouldn't that just be a theft? And you'd be right. But the area of which he entered wasn't just the store, it was actually a secure area that the public wouldn't have access to. And so we actually entered into a place where he was trespassing and stealing, which is what kind of gets us to our burglary charge. So not the burglar you might think of where you're thinking, I'm missing the lawnmower out of my garage, but burglary charge nonetheless. Any questions on April, May thefts thus far? Okay. So next we're looking at citations. Month to month, these tend to be pretty similar. We got 44 citations just downtown for April and May, the 28-day window, most of which were violations for sell or consume alcohol in public. That's an offense that our resource officers would tell you they spend a lot of time focusing on because alcohol leads to a lot of our problems. And so I was talking to some people in the room just this morning, and everyone we bump into on the street, that's one of the #1 complaints is, man, we're walking downtown and we got people passed out and drinking on the corner, harassing everyone, right? It's common thing that we're always working with our community partners to collaborate on to find resolution for. One of the things we do as the police department is citations for those violations. So when we catch people drinking on the corner, this is that citation. So I'll show you more of this. I broke it down number by number for the past 30 days, and we've written a fair number of those citations. You'll see the other ones kind of fall in here: indecent or disorderly act, urinating in public, riding a bike on a sidewalk. A lot of the things we've talked about at previous meetings that are safety concerns, public welfare type of concerns. We try to get out there and take enforcement action on those things. So here's our COPs, community-oriented policing activity, as we would call it. So this is what we're talking about, where we have officers actually walking the beat. I think some people think that's a thing of the past. Our DROs will tell you that they're logging hours on a regular basis on their shift, out walking around in the downtown area, and also on bike patrol, like pedal bikes. 47 proactive activities with 68 hours logged for our downtown resource officers. Just a reminder on this statistic is that that's just the 3 downtown resource officers that are assigned to downtown. That does not include all of the rest of patrol coverage like the rest of the city would have. So this is just the bonus, if you will, so the extra stuff. Any questions? We're gonna switch to May to June, last 30-day window here before we move on. Anybody have anything? Nothing. All right. So 848 calls for service for the last 28 days. It's gone up a little bit. We're seeing that we're getting a little bit busier with the nice weather. More calls for service are happening. Once again, broke down the top 8 to 10 call for service locations by numbers. You'll see that they've shuffled around a little bit month to month. Some of them as dramatic as 10 calls for service at times, higher or lower, and some of them are more consistent. Crime trends. So here we're looking at aggravated assaults again. You'll remember that the previous 30-day window we were at 2 and now we're at 6. The number's 4 in red for an increase of 4 this month compared to last. So we'll break that down as well so that you can see exactly what's to that. All in all, everything else is looking really good. We're once again, month after month, seeing negative numbers, which is good. The work that they're putting in out on the street is paying off. But we'll still look at that theft number. You'll see that 11, we still got a fair number of thefts going on. I looked into every one of those cases. I read every one of them. A lot of them are what we've talked about. Someone left a wallet and then it was missing when they went back. That's about half of it. The other half is a shoplifting related crime. Not a master ring of thieves running around downtown per se. It's more opportunistic stuff. So diving into the 5 most recent aggravated assaults in the last 28 days here, we have the first one, 2 males fighting at Fort Knox. One of the males gets the upper hand and actually smashes the other guy's head off a metal railing and knocks him out. And that's what made it, the going unconscious is what makes it an aggravated assault in that case. The suspect fled. They're still investigating that case, I believe. Next one, 2 males fighting at Gladys Ray. One hit the other with a stick. That suspect, I think they both ended up fleeing from the police, but the suspect did for sure. The police catch up to the suspect, and the suspect then punches one of the officers in the chest. They detain and arrest Roger Jackson for that offense. So an arrest was made there for ag assault. 2 things there that make this up. Just specifically using a weapon during the assault makes it an elevated offense as well. Next, a male stated he was choked out. This was, I believe, about bar close. Called police, said, "Hey, I got choked out by this guy." Officers show up, they investigate, and it turns out that the caller had actually been suspected of stalking a female throughout the bar crowd one weekend. And he actually assaulted her when another male stepped in to defend her, is how he ended up alleging that he was choked out. So he ended up being arrested. Actually, the victim for the complaint ended up being arrested for the aggravated assault. So you see sometimes when you look at the number and go, oh my gosh, ag assault, the case might not be what you think. Next, a male was knocked out in the hot dog line outside of Fort Knox, and the suspect fled. Next, bloody male found by an empty alcohol bottle laying on the side of the road. Actually, I think it's by an underpass. Said he was knocked out, but he was uncooperative. So officers go there, try to render aid. Hey, what happened? And sometimes we just get out of here. I want nothing to do with you. Don't want to talk to the police. This is one of those times. However, while the police and paramedics were working together to render aid to this individual, he made the comment, "I was knocked out." So that triggers, we ask our officers to document that with the proper reports so that we're making sure we're being diligent about that. Sometimes victims will come back and say, "Hey, I'd like to press charges later." And so we're very diligent about making sure we're doing everything we can to document what we have when we have it. So not a lot of information there. We don't really know what happened, but we have kind of an allegation of a possibility, so it ended up going in as ag assault. And the last one here, 2 males who are suspected to be known to each other got into a fight over a female that they know in the area of Spicy Pie. One struck the other with a chain. That would be Dwayne Aru, and Dwayne was arrested for aggravated assault as a result of that. Anybody at Spicy Pie remember this or have anything to add on that one? Nothing? I'm guessing it happened outside. I don't think it was inside Spicy Pie. Any questions on the aggravated assaults for May or June? Okay. 50 citations in the last 28 days, and here's where we broke it down by number just to give you the magnitude of those consuming in public, drinking alcohol in public, 26 citations. So we're averaging about 1 citation for drinking downtown a day. So it attests to that we're down there trying to take enforcement action on that. We're also working collaboratively with our community partners in non-enforcement ways to try to resolve the problem, because certainly a ticket isn't going to solve the issue. So we're trying to do that as well. Got some traffic stuff, as you would expect. There's city streets, right? Someone ran a red light. Some drug activity, 2 people riding bikes on a sidewalk, urinating public, and 1 indecent or disorderly act. 63 proactive or community-oriented policing events, with 78 hours that our 3 DROs logged on foot or bike in the last 28 days. So I've been very active down there, being proactive and getting down and involved with some of the problems that are occurring there. Colt Morin was a recent arrest in the stemming from some disturbances downtown. 5 different businesses in this area have had trespassed him recently. He was called in for masturbating in front of Cooper House staff while heavily intoxicated on May 12th, and then he was called in for being on top of someone's rooftop, and this all happened in a short period of time. When he was called in for being on the rooftop is actually the 3rd call for service their officers dealt with him that day. Clearly somebody who's struggling here. Suspected of using narcotics, he was arrested for ingestion, disorderly conduct, and criminal mischief. Rita Taylor is also somebody who's been arrested downtown recently for several disturbances. In the past 30 days, she's had 14 disturbance calls that we've actually documented with her. So we're looking at like every other day for 30 days straight. This is a person that's getting called in. Some of the arrests have been for DUI, consuming alcohol in public, 2 different trespass cases there as well, and a theft case. Just in case you're curious, like what's happened in the rest of the city, how do we compare for the downtown area? The number 14, these are the beats on the bottom, and 14 is the downtown beat. If you want to take a quick comparison of how the rest of the city looks, the 20, 21, 22, 23s are out west and south, kind of over by the mall, if that gives you kind of a visual of activity there. 10 would be airport and north, and kind of counts 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, kind of trickling down towards the downtown area. 21 being northwest, and 24 being southwest. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we're at. The one notable thing that we're higher than just about everybody else on is those ag assaults, but I just broke those down for you to show you kind of some of the circumstances of that. A lot of times it's people knowing each other, alcohol related, and somebody ends up getting knocked out or using a stick or a chain or something as part of the assault. So maybe it's what you're thinking, maybe it wasn't, but not cause for alarm per se, but certainly alarming to us. We want to make sure we're doing what we can to keep that in check. And as always, we leave this slide there all the time, who to call when and how. If you have any questions or concerns, please come see us afterwards. If you don't feel comfortable asking it right now, we're going to hang out afterwards, and we'd love to interact with you. For things that come up where it's maybe a non-emergency, please call our non-emergency number and have officers come right away. I think a lot of times people have the thing like, I don't want to bother the police, right? Like, I don't know if it's that big of a deal. Maybe somebody just broke a tree branch off the front of my business or whatever. Please call that stuff in right away. The sooner we can get after it, the sooner maybe we can go try to locate that person. And even if it's just a delayed report, just call that non-emergency number to dispatch. Hey, I got a vandalism. Someone painted my wall. Whatever the case may be, we encourage you to call those things in so that we can have officers respond in a timely manner and start those investigations. The sooner we can get on top of those issues, the more effective we can be. And then as always, if there's an emergency, please call 911. Everybody gets that. So we also have the text to tip if you prefer to text or don't have the ability to talk on the phone a lot. So we got that as well. So any questions? This is the end of the crime report. Please.
So obviously impairment is a theme.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about your partnerships with programs.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just describe that a little bit further,
Mm-hmm.
what that looks like? Because obviously the citations maybe aren't cutting it.
Right.
So what do those program partnerships look like?
Sure. You want to talk about the day-to-day and what it looks like?
I guess I will. So specifically, give me an example.
So, Rita, bless her heart, Rita, right? So there she is, several citations, several things, impairment, whatever it might be. And clearly sending her away or giving her one more ticket isn't fixing the problem or coming back. So how systematically, how are we trying their rotavirus impairment or whatever else might be causing these alcohol and impairments on the
Sure. Rita has a lot of stuff going on, and we don't ticket her very often because it's deeper than that. So what we've been trying to do is trying to get her, what we have tried to do is try to get her the help she needs, whether it's through MOPS, which is mobile in the engagement center, looking at mental health, chemical health. And it's difficult because she, or any person, you can't force them to do anything, which in this case makes it difficult for the businesses and the engagement team to do their job, and for us. So to be brutally honest, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how we're going to tackle the Rita Taylor issue. But we're all going to work together to try to find that solution. But eventually, we're hoping that one of us, whether it's the engagement team or us, will be able to reach her and actually get her to understand that she's got to change something about her behavior, because the road she's going down isn't working. So,
If you're looking for a 10,000-foot view, more or less, I mean, to answer your question in the broad spectrum, right, is our DROs work very closely with Jillian and the Harm Reduction Center, and they're talking daily to connect to resources. Whether there's been times where we've arrested people, not for the microphone. There's been times where we've arrested people and then made that referral, like, hey, we're going to give them the time out they need to just resolve the issue for the day. It doesn't resolve it long term. So who can we connect them with now that they're in custody? Maybe they can catch them on the back end of that, right? When they get released, maybe they're sober for the first time in a few days, and maybe they can get that help that way. And Jillian has been phenomenal with being there for us for anything that we ask for that way. And there's other people that they reach out to in the community as well for different shelters, services, food, all that stuff. But, you know, like you said, we make all the referrals we can, we make the connections we can, we ask for those partnerships. We, the police, can't do it by ourselves. We know that. And so we do all those things. But did that answer your question in a broad spectrum? Okay. Matt, did you have something to add?
And Kim and Gladys Ray can attest to this as well. You kind of have to wait for that window. They'll present that window at some point. We deal with the day-to-day stuff, and then when they present that window that they're amenable to trying to do something about these issues, we know the resources, we know what needs to happen, and we're ready to move. And so, unfortunately, sometimes it's waiting for that window to present itself.
Hey.
Truly, the answer for someone like Rita is housing, where she's not out on the street. And so that's kind of, when you talk about community partnerships, housing has become a really big target for us. And everything we do is geared towards finding her or people like her stable housing. That doesn't mean she's going to stop drinking or stop using or stop being trafficked or abused, but it does give us a chance to give her some opportunities to do some different things.
I'd like to piggyback on that as well. When we meet as a DRO group, one of the most common success stories is exactly that. It's, hey, we haven't seen so-and-so a while. Where did they go? They have housing. It's definitely a big part of that. So we absolutely see the results of that as well.
I've got I want to get clarification. Did you indicate that there were 60 hours of foot patrol? Is that within 1 week?
I think it was 68. Are you talking about the most recent 28 days? Oops.
May and June was.
Seven. There we go. Is that the number you're looking for?
Okay.
Or do you want the latest one?
No, that's fine. So that's that's probably a team of two police officers, I'm guessing, right? Just
3.
at least 3 on,
It varies, yes.
okay. Well, I guess what the math on that works out to me is it doesn't seem like a lot of presence of foot patrol. And, I see police walking occasionally, but not as much as I'd like. That's just me. Just an observation. And then I have a question about citations for consumption. What's the efficacy of that if you give somebody a citation for public consumption or a citation for any, that's the most common one, it would appear, or a common one. Is that a citation to appear in court and pay a fine? Is that just more record keeping, that we know that this person's been given a citation for drinking in public 6 times in the last month? What is the end game of issuing a citation?
Start at the beginning.
Okay, so if you are on a city street or sidewalk and you have an open container, okay, and you're actively drinking out of it. What that means is that you can be given or issued a citation for sell, consume, possess alcohol in public. It's a non-criminal offense. About 5 years ago, it got changed to non-criminal versus a B misdemeanor. What that means is, 5 years ago, I could have, because a B misdemeanor has to be I have to witness that offense. If it's witnessed in if I witnessed that, I can take you to jail. Or I set you a court date. A non-criminal offense, as it is now, is like a traffic ticket. It means that you have 14 days to pay that fee, and you go on with your day. There is no more enforcement action as far as that is concerned.
Okay, I guess it seems like it would be a pretty deep dig to find out how many of those fines are actually paid. I question if many of them really are.
That is probably a good conversation to have, but I can't have that one right.
Just another observation. And then lastly, I wrote down crime versus perception of safety. So you've outlined the real crime that's happening, things that, there's really not that much, really. There's a lot of crime, obviously, but on the graph, there's not as much as one would think it would be. But I want to share an example of the perception side of it. I walked into my store this morning at, 6:30, and in the sun, I could see that the glass was dirty. It looked bad. I also looked down on the ground, and the sidewalk looked bad. Now, I intend to, when I leave here, I'll probably go back to the store and either wash the window myself or tell somebody to wash the window. And I equate this to a visitor to our community on Broadway, or even a resident of Broadway, walking up the street and seeing a gathering of, their residents as well. I understand that. Not the most savory band of residents that take post on 4th Avenue and Broadway. The perception of that is it's really poor. There are a number of customers of mine who will take a different route. They'll walk on they might choose to walk down Roberts Alley or walk on the east side of Broadway to then cross the street to get in, so they don't have to walk by that bench where those people are gathered. And although there might not be being crime committed, it's a bad look for me and my business, and frankly the whole community. And you could go a block north or a block south and see the same thing that happens an hour later. I don't have a good workaround for this, personally. I oftentimes do my best to engage those people, say hello, say, no, I'm not giving you money today, and no, I'm not giving you anything to eat. However, what can I do to help? And that's the smallest thing I can do, is if a member of the public sees me talking to these people, they may feel less threatened. It's pretty rare that I feel threatened by the people that are out there, but I'd rather not have them there, because my customers and the city of Fargo, or a lot of people in the city of Fargo, don't like seeing it. That's just my comparison of crime versus perception. Yeah.
Well, Hans touched on it a little, that bench in front of Spicy Pie. What's it take to get rid of that bench? Should I just get a saw and cut it out?
Laura?
It was gone, and then it was brought back.
That one never left.
That one,
One on the north side, under the 400 building.
let's get it out of there.
That is another conversation that we can have, but it's bigger than,
It's just a bench.
I know.
It can be taken out in 10 minutes without going on for years. This has been going on for years on this. And just echoing a little on what Hans has said, that I've got friends, I love eating downtown at the restaurants. They won't come downtown. Downtown's got a bad perception, a real bad perception. That's all I got.
Thank you.
We did consuming alcohol in public become a citation. Why did that happen?
Do you know the history of the citation change? Or what happened there, for consuming? I don't personally know the history of it. I don't know why they changed.
I don't know a ton of history. I know that they decriminalized it because it was something we were willing to try, because the people, and I've worked downtown most of my career. I've been here only 14 years, and that's not enough. But I can tell you, in those 14 years, I wrote that citation a lot to anybody and everybody that was consuming outside of that bar or on the sidewalk, on the street. And most times they got issued, when they got issued that citation, the court decides if it's going to be, that a court date is set for them to appear at a different time. And then we give the person that. But there was also a certain part of our population downtown that was getting them, and it seemed like a crime like that, we were filling up our jail. And that they were, it was meant to be a lesson learned, and it wasn't going that route. So the city commission, along with the police department and other partners, decide to lessen that to a non-criminal, like a traffic ticket. And it takes much longer now for if I gave you, it would take, like, if I cited you 10 times in 2 months, 10 times in 2 months, it would take another month or two, because of how the court system works, for there to be a warrant for your arrest. Does that answer your question? Because of those unpaid fines.
Do you have?
So,
Well, I mean, Jan or Jillian because they worked with Jess on that.
Jan, I hate to put you on the spot. Would you be willing to talk about what Jess White worked with you all on to work off the fines? One of the questions Hans had was how many people are paying those fines? Do you have enough to talk about that?
Sure, yes. Okay, I have such a big voice, I hate to get on. All right, so one of the things that we're talking about is we had developed a community service program where people could work off those fines by working actually in a public space, primarily downtown, or other city-owned buildings, for example. Having folks that are interacting with law enforcement downtown, it only made sense to us that we know they're not gonna pay the fine, we know it's gonna cost a great deal to have that person put in jail. So let's have them work those fines off downtown so that we can still hold that person accountable for the fact that they did get a charge for doing something they weren't supposed to do, and hopefully the city can benefit. We have had very little activity with that for the last few months, mostly because of a shortage of staff. We hope to, right now we're in the process of trying to hire for the engagement center as well so that we can have predictable hours there so that you all have some place to refer. Something just cut out for a second. Someplace to refer people so that they do have someplace to be. That's certainly not going to work for every single person that we're talking about downtown, but I think that it certainly will help alleviate some of the traffic and some of the perceptions, like you talk about with crowds gathering in different spots. In the meantime, we do hope to get community service hours going again. It's a process where we do have to get a judge to approve that person is able to work off those hours. At one point, we were up to $50,000 in fines being worked off. I don't know how many jail stays that represents right offhand, but we do hope to get it going again. It's really a staff shortage issue for us, as many of our biggest challenges right now are.
Thank you, Jan. I think that's a great example of when you ask community partnerships, right? Like working together to try to find creative solutions to some of those concerns, right? We were all just doing the best we can with that, so thank you, Jan. Who else has a question?
In the interest of time, can we move on to the public safety section and then circle back around on the discussion?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, when it comes to personal safety and you guys these are suggestions. Probably a lot of you are already doing them, but we'll go through it and just based on officers, including myself, as far as our what we have seen over the years. So, I would say that a good camera system is number one. So let's just say for the easy convenience, let's say we're using this room as is your store. If you notice that the cameras are at different heights, you've got ones where they'll be able to get a view from above, and then you also notice that there are some that are more, that are much lower, so you can probably capture that facial recognition a little easier. I just think that if you can upgrade your cameras, and I know a lot of it depends on cost, but good quality camera picture quality is huge when it comes to investigation. When you have, if your store is bringing in a lot of revenue that day, or on basically any day, a lot of times you should look at maybe frequently depositing some of that cash out of the cash register. So there is a low amount of cash, $50 or a couple $100 versus thousands. That's another way, and even having signs up like you see in certain convenience stores in town where they say, well, there's only $50. Oh, we only have $200 in the cash register, or up to. Maybe having a lockbox in a separate room, in a locked room, you know, maybe that's your loss prevention room where your internal camera system and computer system is gathering all that data. Having some place where within the store that is not free and give opportunity. And for your employees, and I know some of you, like Hans was talking about, that he engages people quite often that may be confrontational, and he doesn't want them in the store, but I would advocate for call us right away. Call for help and don't engage them. We've seen it time and time again where the employee gets hurt because they don't, you know, they're trying to prevent somebody from stealing a $10 item or a candy bar or something like that. Honestly, it's not worth it. But being a good witness is even more important. Getting, a very detailed description of what they're wearing, height, right from head to toe, blonde hair, dark, black hair, whatever. That is, it seems for the chances of getting and finding that person, it helps us a great deal if we can get a detailed description of what that person is wearing at the time of the crime. Technology is not my strong point. When it comes to the parking garages, and I know that a lot of businesses downtown are not able to park right next to their business because they want those spaces open for their customers. So I understand that a lot of business owners or employees have to park a distance, a few blocks or more away. So if you guys don't feel comfortable walking alone if it's later at night, call the Business Improvement District, which is the BID. And and if you don't have that number, if you don't have that number, good Lord, we will get it to you today. I think Laura does have it, along with Matt and Sergeant Halverson. We can get that number for you. But a few tips that we were talking about is when you are parking in like a parking ramp, or if you're parking on the side of the street, if you can find and park under a well-lit area. Downtown is pretty well lit these days. Not that there isn't room for improvement, but it is pretty well lit. So park in an area like that if it makes you feel better. When you're walking, try not to be talking on your phone or distracted by texting, or keep your hands free in case you do encounter somebody and your head up. Maybe you have your keys in your hand. Maybe they're if you're right-handed or left-handed, make sure they're in your hand. So as soon as you get to your vehicle, you can unlock it, or if you have the ability to keyless entry, you can get right in your car. If you feel that you're being followed, and you're close to your car, get in your car right away, lock the doors, and call 911. If you're not close to your car, find the nearest business and go inside and ask for help. But please, that information that you gather, please call us and let us know. Report that activity. We want to know that, because we want to try to keep this area of town, at least, you know, where I work, our number one priority is making sure that you guys feel safe. Okay. And as well as when you are walking to your car, walk with a purpose. If you can't get anybody to escort you, you know, make sure that you're walking knowing that you want to get to your car right away. You guys may also want to, your employees, maybe they can offer some self-defense classes. So maybe if that is something that you as employers or employees want to do, it's just another avenue you can think about. If you carry a purse, make sure that it's tucked underneath so it's not easily accessible or somebody can come up behind you and just take it and run. Again, if you feel like you're being followed, you know, get into a well-lit or walk into a business and ask for help. If you feel that, if you do encounter somebody and you don't feel comfortable, and you don't think you can leave, dial 911 anyway, even if you don't feel that you can talk. Because our 911 system is very good. We know where you are within a small window. We know pretty much where your location is if you call 911. So even if you're not necessarily defending yourself, but you're interacting with them, but they don't know that you're calling, the sooner you call or sooner you make that connection with the 911 dispatch center, the sooner we can come there and help you. And it's also a good idea, like, you know, if you're the one closing up the shop and, you know, you've called the bid at least 15 minutes to a half hour ahead of time saying, I'm closing up and by 10 o'clock, could somebody escort me? Another thing to do is text a friend or text your employer or text somebody that you know and let them know that you'll be leaving. So then they have that communication with you. You have a question?
Yeah, this bid runs 24/7. So we run until 10 a.m. currently, and depending on budgeting and up from there, we will hope that they can do 24/7 service. They run from 10 to
10 p.m.
and they start at 7 a.m.
So, visibility when it comes to cameras as well. It is a good idea if you can't update your camera system right away. Maybe, again, let's use this room. Most of you, if not all of you, have been in a convenience store, probably within the last 3 days. You notice that they have those mirrors, and they're huge. They're like this big. And they have them in the corners, or they have them so they can get direction in every aisle. So at least if you're the only person in the store and you're running the counter, at least you have that opportunity to kind of scan the room, look down those mirrors to see who is there. And I don't know how much they cost, but does anybody know? Because I don't think they cost that too terribly much. But between those two things, a mirror and those mirrors and cameras, those things they're awesome. I've noticed walking downtown that a lot of a few businesses have put cameras and change their lighting just outside their door. And maybe that is also is something you could think about and use it as a deterrent. Because if you have a well-lit area, even when it's dark everywhere else, a well-lit doorway with that in a decent camera system, I mean, we can catch a lot of, and our investigation can go a lot farther with a good camera system and lighting. Just them two alone. And lastly, when it comes to this, and I'll use Shields as an example. So in your stores, and probably a lot of you are already doing this, but something to think about is your high value, your expensive items. Shields has, all their sunglasses. They don't leave them right by the register, and they don't leave them, to purchase. They don't leave them right by the exit and entrance doors. They're in part of the store towards about in the middle in the back, and they're surrounded and they're in a lockbox. I mean, I don't work out west that often, or never did, but I have rarely ever heard of somebody being able to steal sunglasses out of Shields because it's in a locked case. So when you add that to just as a prevention thing when it comes to theft and or shoplifting, and it is something to think about. Maybe that alone can keep your high value items in the store instead of being able to leave the store. When we were talking earlier about that area where your employees have a place to put their personal items, it's a locked area or a locked room. We've had a few instances in the last probably month that employees have lost their own personal items while they were working, because those items were almost, the opportunity was there, and they were just alongside the cash register, or they were, I mean, it was unfortunate. But having an area where the employee can put their items, personal items, would really help. So that opportunity doesn't exist. Is your deadbolt, is your locking your doors, is there more than one way to lock your door? Is there you have a deadbolt and the knob, or do you have a security system that alarms if the door has been able to, opened, or a security system at all? Those are all things that can help you as an employer and employee feel safe. And then the last thing we were going to talk about is the civil unrest considerations, and it kind of goes along the line of employee-employer safety. So about 2 or 3 months ago, about 2 months ago, DROs, Officer Nord and Niemeyer and I walked throughout the whole downtown area and looked at and took notes and looked at areas where we thought maybe would give, if there was a civil unrest downtown again, where we thought we could make contact with the business owners to see if we can help diminish that opportunity for window breaking and getting on top of buildings and so on. So Sergeant Halverson kind of put a little PowerPoint together, and if maybe employers could have a short notice plan, like maybe you would have already cut plywood and screws to board up your windows. Is there somebody that you've already have, basically on call that will come and do it for you? Take them out of a storage area and they're already, all you gotta do is put them up. You don't have to cut anything. They're numbered. You know exactly where they go. Where is the gas shut off and the water shut off for your building? Is it accessible to anybody and everybody? What about the roof access? Is there a dumpster nearby, or is there a ladder nearby where they're able to get on top of the dumpster and then access, a ladder that's 10 feet up, which is now gives them the ability to get on top of your roof? Do you need that ladder at all? There was a couple businesses downtown that you don't even use that ladder and haven't for years because they have other access, and the ladder was still just attached to the building, just because it'd been there for years. And we asked them, do you feel that you could take it down? And they were like, yeah, but they didn't think about it. So it was those little things that we, gathering that information. So, if there is a next time, hopefully not, but if there is a next time, that is one less way that we can, one way we can reduce the unrest to the property and the employers. All three of us were glad to do it. Does anybody have any questions about anything? Come on. Laura.
So I always hate to ask this question, but I feel like as somebody that advocates for the downtown businesses, I know last year we got a lot of calls anytime that there was a protest downtown or a march or a remembrance gathering. This weekend is Juneteenth. Has the police department plan to provide any support? Or is there anything our business owners should know of, be aware of, or be prepared for?
I don't know of anything that's planned. Sergeant Halverson may know more than I do, but we haven't heard of anything. But if we do, yes, we will get the word out. Absolutely. Is that it? Anybody? Okay. Sergeant Halverson will come back up. You still have, if you guys want to have a after meeting discussion about anything, all three of us will be here, and we'll stay after as long as we need to.
Yeah, once again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. There was a lot of great questions and discussion about things. And like I said, if you got something burning in your mind, please come grab us on a one-on-one level too, so we can dive into some of those issues and concerns deeper. We're happy to accept feedback and work together collaboratively to resolve issues. So we encourage you. We'll be hanging out up here. But thank you all so much for your time, and we hope to see you at the next one as well. Have a good day.